Well, welcome everyone to the Macomb meeting of the Warren Astronomical Society. We are starting at 7 o'clock, which is our new starting time, both here at Macomb, and it will be our new starting time at Cranbrook. So let me run through a few things. The big news I've heard about or been hearing about in astronomy is this business over big, mature-looking galaxies that are only a few 100 million years old, apparently. And there's just wild stuff being speculated about that. One astrophysicist is suggesting that one way to fix this, I mean, you shouldn't have big mature galaxies only 0.3 billion years after the Big Bang. So one way of addressing it is to say they are old, that we are using a model to estimate how old they are. That's wrong. So the Big Bang is still okay. We just have to do more detailed measurements on these very ancient galaxies. One of the other approaches is to say where our whole idea of the Big Bang is wrong. One astrophysicist in India is saying he thinks the universe is about 27 billion years old, and it may be expanding and banging and booming and banging, that kind of stuff. That's an old idea, but he's resurrecting it and saying maybe that's what's going on. And I'm sure there's other ideas floating around. That's the biggest news I've heard about in astronomy lately. I think the James Webb Telescope is going to have various surprises for us. It should have surprises for us, but don't jump to conclusions too quickly.
There is another alternative.
Can you guys hear what he said? Why don't you come up here and talk?
There's a YouTuber I really like, Dr. Becky. She's a great astrophysicist, and she did a video on this a little bit ago. Yeah. They might not be mature galaxies. Maybe we're wrong with the observation. And so there was an independent team that modeled it differently and kind of got the numbers to fit, and definitely refuted the claim that the Big Bang was wrong, but some of the other stuff might. But yeah, that's just another possibility.
Yeah, I think the original estimate of age was based on a very crude way of estimating the age of the galaxy. They didn't have detailed spectra of the galaxy, and I don't know if that spectra has now been taken or if it's in the works. So that's the biggest news I'm aware of.
Betelgeuse hasn't gone off yet, so
yeah, Betelgeuse hasn't exploded yet, according to Jeff McLeod.
Any day now.
Did you check it recently?
Any day now, 100,000 years.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Well,
Okay.
There's a team claiming less than 100 years.
Less than 100 years?
According to their data.
There's a discussion going on here over how soon Betelgeuse will explode.
That's a bold thing.
Okay, so I have various, I'm not used to running this meeting. I'm going to do my best. If I forget something, remind me, please. Bob Tremblay, our president, is on vacation, and so I'm filling in for him. So the 2024 calendar for the Warren Astronomical Society is in the works, and we need images, pictures, whatever, You can send them to publications@warrenastro.org, or I suspect Dale Teamy could also be directly sent the images. I got the treasurer's the WASP is out for this month. The treasurer's report is in it. Nothing drastic happened to the numbers. The Astronomical League has its year start in the middle of the year, so it's those who wanted to join again for this year, it's already a done deal. But if you joined and aren't getting your membership benefits, Adrian says to email him at treasurer@warrenastro.org, and he will see what's going on. Two of the officers sent me emails. Mark Kedzier, our secretary, and Dale Teamy, in charge of publications, sent me emails today saying they're not eligible to run for their offices for next year because they're term limited. That means this is their third year serving in those specific offices. So in case anybody wants to start thinking about possibly being secretary or in charge of publications, those offices need to be filled. Dale also says he would be willing to continue as editor of the WASP if that would be desired.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah, that makes that job real easy, being publications. Right? I mean, it's just been excellent. Award-winning excellent, right?
More than
Yeah, we're getting lots of comments here about excellent. So another item coming up is the Warren Astronomical Society annual picnic, which we had originally scheduled for late August. But when we tried to reserve the pavilion, it was already booked. So the day of the annual picnic has been changed to Saturday, July 29, the last Saturday of this month. The officers are going to show up around 4 o'clock to get things organized. The picnic will start around 5 o'clock, so for everybody else. And as it gets dark, we'll have observing at Stargate that evening. So the last Saturday of the month is when the picnic will be. Yeah, starting at 5. The society will provide hot dogs, hamburgers, condiments, soda. Attendees are encouraged to bring a side dish to pass. Also, if you have some astronomical gear you're looking to sell or trade, bring it along for our informal swap meet during the picnic. Astronomy at the beach is in the works for September 22 to 23. If there are, 1 second, please. Oh, and we're working on the annual banquet for December. The date we're aiming for is Thursday, December the 7th. We're looking for places to hold the event. If somebody has a suggestion, please let the officers know for a location to do that. Another announcement for those who are present here is we've got our snacks here. Normally Bob Tremblay has been, at least recently, taking that stuff home with him and bringing it back, but I gather he won't be here, or you won't be here at the next meeting. Yeah. Anyhow, so if somebody could take home whatever's left today and bring it to the next meeting, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay. So any other officers have a report to give? Speak up now.
Well, I can do my own spiel for all the other stuff.
Okay,
So if you want to know what happened last month, look at the WASP. But open house is this Saturday. Beautiful weather. I'm telling you, it's coming. I'm actually going to have the Gemini simulator out there this weekend. Where's the camera? Ooh, I got my mini Gemini right here. Oh, they can't see it? Yeah, they can see it. Okay. So if you want to fly a spaceship, come to the open house, and then we'll look through the telescopes and have all that good fun. My other duties, I don't have a discussion group. So if you want to host one, let me know. We'll get you on the schedule. Snack volunteer. If you want to bring snacks, it's been all of us doing it. And if you also want to take that job from me, either of them. So you don't have to be on the board, but you can help the club in a way that we greatly appreciate. Let me know. You can do it next year. It's a pretty easy job. All right, I think that's all I have.
okay.
Hey, Dale,
Yeah,
one other item, wasn't mentioned yet, but, this being July, the, anybody, I don't know if they've got visitors tonight, but anybody who's online viewing or anything who's not a member of the club, if they join the club in July, they get their membership all the way through, let's see, 2024.
that's true.
They get the remainder this year. This is the best deal they could possibly get because each month goes by, it gets less and less ideal.
Yeah, Dale is saying if you join the club for the first time in the second half of the year, your membership is good through the end of the following year. Okay, thanks, Dale. Okay, let's look at special interest groups. We've got a rather light attendance. No, I don't see Marty. Okay. Okay, you want to do that now? Come on. So Bob Bird is going to fill in for the hands-on observing solar since Marty Coons isn't.
Yeah.
here.
The sun has been very active. They're predicting that the solar maximum is going to be next year. So you can expect to see a lot of stuff in the news about activity on the moon. I've been doing a lot of solar photography. I've got one to show later. Maybe I'll show it later. I've got a deep sky one I could show later too, but it's pretty neat. I'd recommend highly when you come out to the open house, get a little bit early when the sun's still up, because we can let you look through some solar telescopes. We just installed a new solar telescope on our big telescope in the observatory. So it was a clear day, a nice day. I can get out there and look, well, not really look to that. You'll see a video image through that.
Got a huge activity.
Yeah.
Eight major sunspots.
Yep.
On there right now.
Yep.
Okay.
Today.
Anyway, that's our solar activity report.
Thank you. So Dale Teamy, anything new with regard to history and archives?
Well, yeah, I'm currently working on what I originally thought was missing articles or issues. I thought there was just a gap where they just did not exist because we had versions online, both HTML type and PDFs, but the HTMLs actually disappeared in 2003 during May, June, and July. And I just went through a bit of Jim Sodowski's collection and opened up a loose leaf folder and was going through it, and holy cow, here they are, all printed out very nicely. So I'm working on digitizing those.
Okay, sounds good. How many, once you do that, are there still gaps in our history?
Oh, yeah. I only have 2 issues where there was an apology for the missing issue. So I know those don't exist at all. But there is probably about between 1 and 2 dozen issues still MIA.
Okay,
What's really funny is that the decade of the 1990s has the most missing issues.
and how old is the oldest issue?
March 1969.
Wow,
We got that one.
wow, where were you in March 1969? A few months later, people were landing on the moon.
Yeah.
The Army.
Okay, thank you, Dale.
No problem.
Okay, I think Riyadh is not here to talk about double star observing. So that brings us down to astrophotos. Bob, did you say you had something to share? We can try. He has some stuff on a flash drive. Here, let's try sticking it into this. I don't see it here. Attention required. Yes. Finish. Okay, where is it? How do we get to it? Down here.
Okay,
Is it this one?
yeah, both of those there. Show the, show that one first, the second one first. Just hit open at the top.
Okay.
There you go. That's it. Okay, can everybody see that picture?
Look at that.
This was, I took this picture.
You took this picture?
This was taken on July 6th. And this is an excuse me, active region number 3361 on the left here. Over on the right, this is another area. And to me, this is spectacular. This stuff that's going on now. This was taken with my 80 millimeter Apple refractor with a Daystar Quark H alpha. And this took about, I would say maybe 1 minute or less to image this. Is the way you do that, you take a video, and I usually do 2,000 image frames within that video. And then you have software that takes all those images and treats each one as a single image. It stacks all of them, aligns them, and then once you're done, this is done in black and white. And then once you're done, you colorize it. So this is 2,000 basically individual frames of video stacked on top of each other.
Wow.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this was taken from my house, right in light polluted Macomb Township, because during the day, you don't care if it's light polluted for solar astronomy.
How do we get an idea of how big a piece of the sun?
This
would
is
be?
pretty small. I would say if you had the sun was about size of a pie plate, this is probably about the size of maybe a pea or so on the sun.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Then the other picture I have is not a solar image. Oh, one thing I can do, I'm working up a presentation to show exactly how you do this for solar imaging. And so that's the future presentation I'm going to be doing. I'm writing it up right now. I'm going to be doing the dry run of it for the Oakland Astronomy Club for a picnic they've got coming up. So that's going to be done this summer. So after that, I'll be able to show the other.
Are you on our speaker schedule for that?
Yeah.
I'll get you.
Yeah, I will. Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a picture I did the last clear day we had at my house. This is taken from my backyard in Macomb Township, which is about a Bortle 6-7 sky using a narrowband filter on my 80 millimeter refractor. This is about, I think it was 10 5-minute long exposures stacked. So you can get some pretty amazing images right from a light polluted area.
What is it?
Oh, this is IC 1318, which is Gamma Cygni, which is in Cygnus. This is about 3.5 by 2.5 degree field of view. My next step is I'm going to take just the one of the devices I use called ASI Air, and that device now they have an update now. It's an experimental function which allows you to set up doing mosaics. So the next image I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'm going to go probably a 2 by 2 frames of that size, so I have a real wide image, getting even more area in that. That was going to be done last night, but I was too tired to do it last night.
No excuse. at
Yeah,
all.
no excuses. Anyway, but it shows what you can do even with the light pollution, what you can do.
That's amazing. So I'm not familiar with this. What are the orange regions? What are we seeing?
Well, the various nebula, this is all the Emma part of the nebula. This whole area up here is a larger area. There's about 6 different IC objects within that. But this IC 1318 is actually pretty much this area right in here, pretty much the area you're seeing here. But there's area beyond that outside that.
Bob?
If you look at that bright white thing up in the upper left, that's I think it was a Satyr, I think it is, a star. So gradually, I'm going to try to set it up that I can use that as the pivot point. This will be for instance, the lower left right picture. Then I'll have one above that equal size,
Yeah.
one to the left, one to the bottom. So I'll have a 4-panel mosaic.
I think we have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, we're only seeing the sun on Zoom. We're not seeing any other images.
Oh, you still see the sun?
Yes,
Oh, okay. You got to get out of there, I guess. Oh, you have to drop out and go back to it. Here, now can you see it?
better. Yes.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
okay.
Solar.
Yeah, it was the solar flare caused that glitch. Anyway, so I guess you heard what I said before. So that bright white star up in the upper left here, that's hopefully is going to be my pivot point for the other 3 equal size images working around that to create a big mosaic. So if it works out, I'll show that off in a coming meeting. If it doesn't work out, you'll never hear from me again. Okay, that's it, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Wait till I
Get to do that. Can we show this to them, the activity?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can, I have to show it up here on the camera, maybe.
Yeah.
Hey, have you gotten it out here? Can,
Uh,
like what you do, go down here.
It's on here.
Yeah, don't you get, turn that off.
Where is
I
it?
do this one, I think, there. Yeah, that, oops,
This.
right, one over this way. Right there, that one there.
That right there.
Put that right.
Jack disk.
Well, you want to open, you want to close this here. Which is, I think,
Close
the
the
picture.
photos and the folder. I can.
Yeah, that's-
We're having our guru fix this. She did it so quick, I couldn't even see what she said.
Okay,
Thank you.
let me drop this right in here. See if I can show this.
You can look here. This.
Yeah, there you see it there.
There it is. This is the activity on the sun right now. It's a very busy place. You can see all these spots. And by the way, there's supposed to be some aurora as a result of a couple of those spots are flaring out straight out. And we're supposed to get some aurora perhaps this weekend, probably Saturday night or Sunday. And that's pretty much caused by the particular one that's there's one over here. This is the one they're talking about. It's the one on the very right side of the picture, if you can see it. It's just going off. That one was very, very active before, and it's very deep. And that may be the one that's producing it. So there you go.
We'll see it at the open house in Saturday.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I feel that's what I was talking about. There it is, 15, that is it. So
Okay.
so we can, on the way to Peter, we can write to Iris. Yeah, that's fine. You can write to Brian, tell him, yeah, that's, I know what that is. That's a good one.
Go ahead and write.
Okay, what should I do on this one here?
Yeah.
What to send to Brian though?
Send to who? I can type.
Oops.
Why don't you say it?
Well, I don't want to tell you, this is a private one. Why don't you, can you just look to Brian? I'll make sure.
Yeah, it's going to Brian.
Yeah, go ahead and just tell him, that's one we can recommend, it's a good one. So they have no problem with that.
Bob Bird is saying that's a good telescope. You reckon?
Yeah.
What's the matter with just saying it?
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask this. Is there anyone here for the first time? Okay, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening. I'm Charlie Stratfine and I'm from St. Clair Shores. I don't know what to say about myself, but I'm really happy to be here and thank you for putting on me when I come out.
Okay. Have you done any astronomy?
Just recently,
Okay, good. Well,
last summer.
yeah, good. Glad to have you here. Okay, any observing reports?
I didn't observe anything, but let the people on the computer know that it's moon landing day. And it's supposed to mean something to us people.
What?
It's moon landing day.
Oh,
It's not yet, but like, here we go. Oh, it's backwards, but it's not to this July 20th. 54 years ago.
yeah, it wasn't today.
Yeah, it was today. I mean, not literally today. This is the anniversary.
54th anniversary.
54th anniversary.
Houston,
I
the,
got my first kidney stone.
Houston, the Eagle has landed,
We
right?
used to do big things.
Okay. Moon landing day, 54 years along. Any other observing reports? Anybody been out? Anybody have a ask an astronomy question?
Ready.
We've got geniuses here waiting to answer your questions.
Any question you got?
Yeah, no such.
New guy. Any questions?
I plan on being here Saturday and learn more about everything that's going on, so.
Everything in astronomy you ever thought about that you wanted to know about?
Art, any questions?
Any question yet?
Well, not yet. I'm still learning.
Yeah, well, you can ask the question, we'll give you the answer. Get up to your mic, we'll answer.
Yeah. Right. Many times they say the reason we can answer the question is it won't matter if we do it right or wrong, you're not gonna know the difference.
Well, right on. I'm here to learn more about the ancient archaeology in Arizona.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
Well, we got a speaker on that very topic.
that's what I read, yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't there supposed to be, or at least there was a chance that there would be an aurora several days back?
We had, there was.
That picture I showed, the silver, that active region on the left I talked about, that is the one on that day. It would have caused an aurora, they thought, on the following Thursday, but it rained here, and I don't know if there actually did anything short. There were. I'm on several Facebook groups for aurora chasers in the Great Lakes region, and I saw some from the UP on Lake Superior, and I saw as far south. A nice display like near Sleeping Bear did, so they had some clear skies.
So
Minnesota area as well. Yeah. So,
can people listening in hear the discussion in the classroom or not?
pretty hard to hear.
Anyhow, the comment was in some of there was cloudy and rainy here, but in some of the more northern parts of Michigan, people were seeing an aurora
Very, very low. So,
low on the northern horizon.
It looked pretty decent.
Okay, so there's a chance we might see something this weekend,
yes,
right?
that's what we're talking about.
Okay. Any other questions or observation comments? If not, we're going to take our break a few minutes early. It's 7:30 now. Let's reconvene. I mean, we'll leave everything connected, but let's take a 20-minute break and we'll get going again at 10 minutes to 8. Okay? So you guys who are online, you're going to have to find your own snacks. We've got some here.
Will do.
Perks of being.
Yeah.
Had that happen.
Great.
See, this is how you do it, folks. Astronomy themed soda. Finally, the state.
You guys online, we have moon mist soda.
Cookie and escape.
Allergic to oranges?
Allergic to oranges, chocolate and watermelon. And it's not citrus, and I'm allergic to something. So my doctor said.
So that's the question. So we're having an open
I was
house.
having swelling.
And then 1 week later, we're having a fair. We need to get the, cancel it for something else.
We just want to use with it.
I actually think it might be. So, bring those home.
No, that was what happens is my nose starts to swell. Trying to fill it with oranges. Chocolate and watermelon is much worse. It goes right here.
What should I say?
Oh,
Anything?
yeah. He didn't actually talk to Dale as far as the picnic. Hey, Dale, for the picnic, she's asking, what should I bring?
Fruit, cake and salad. A lot of people bring some kind of dessert or I'm sure potato chips, pretzels, that kind of stuff. It's up to you.
I mean, everything I made, I'm proud. But I'm known for my sweet.
My son Rick is nice.
So, this is the first time she was in the office. So this is the first time she's at a phone call. Oh, okay. And they had. They will get. Just today, you saw me. 4:37. Today's my other son, his last day, his job.
Yeah.
And this is my first year. This is my first year. I worked in an office. 7 months. That doesn't matter.
Don't do that.
Oh, right.
Is
Yeah.
he still gonna be local?
Yeah.
Get our membership back.
Do you know how many people are on one? Does it say all excited about that? You say
6.
So, I'll have to do my side. They had to.
With moon lift. Right? Didn't expect that when I was planning. Moon mist.
I know there's other, we should have brought Milky Ways, bars, all kinds. It's out there. There's astronomy themed food if you look for it.
I love this. Charlie, by the way.
As we should.
I appreciate
I'm
coming like this.
technically second vice president, we can actually go through. Is Adrian traveling? Somewhere, yeah.
I thought, well, this
I was
was
like a
after,
giant
I'm like,
That would be great.
There's no light. There's no light. Yeah, yeah. So if he told him what light, I was in trouble. So,
yeah, yeah. How close are we to that area?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's low, I'm like,
so they had 4 vehicles out.
Which ones? And you know what the bad news is now, don't you? So Congress is now gonna explore a little bit more about the UFOs. Like they want to
Two. Yeah.
What is Congress gonna do?
They got a thing, there's a name of
An M99.
something else, and something to do with this also.
UAPs.
UAPs, that's
Yeah.
right.
Goes around.
And no bigger waste of time they can have.
Yeah, and like the most impressive evidence they've ever found, NASA already debunked it, just completely out of hand. And yet,
Oh, yeah, sure. They got nothing else better to do. You know what it is, Tony? They're just screwing us. Both sides.
give people what they want.
They get into mathematics, there's something out there.
Well, the math completely debunked what people were saying. It's like basic trigonometry. The one that was like, not the tic tac, but the other one that was like, oh my God, this is the best. It was a duck.
What it was? It was a duck.
Or a goose. A goose.
Could have been a duck. I think it was a goose.
Carry on, just now, I don't want to get into.
It was definitely a goose. It was a goose.
Yeah.
It was a goose.
Jeff McLeod has some comments to make.
We're talking about UFOs in here because we got nothing better to do.
Somebody said, do you believe in UFOs? I said, there's a lot of things I can't identify.
I've seen them at Stargate. We've seen really weird things at Stargate. So there's a weather station. I think it's northwest of Stargate. We see weather balloons. I've seen them 3 times where the sun is setting. There's a really bright object. It looks like it's Venus, but then you notice it's moving. You lock the telescope on it and you can see clear as day. It's a weather balloon. And we tracked it all the way up. It popped and we followed the payload all the way down and they go and, but we had a member, Joe Tocco. He was out on his front porch. He thinks he's looking at Venus and all of a sudden Venus explodes and disappears. And he goes, well, it's probably unlikely that Venus exploded. So he figured it out. But we were talking about a few months back, there were the Senate hearings or something on these UFOs. And there were 2 videos that were propped up as being like the best technological evidence of these unidentified aerial phenomena. They were on radar. I think it was an infrared camera that was tracking this object, and you can see it. The water, it looks like it's clipping across the water at the speed of sound. Well, it's an optical illusion. The jet is here, the goose is here, and the water's way down here. So the jet's flying at Mach 0.7 or something. It's going like this. The duck isn't moving very fast, but the infrared tracker will track the duck and keep it in the center of the camera. So when you do that, it looks like the ground's moving really fast. So if you don't know what you're looking at, you go, man, it looks like, well then, NASA people that know how to read the information that's on the camera and aren't trying to make money off of this stuff say, well, here's what it's telling you. Here's the range to the object. Here's the height of the aircraft. So the angle of the camera, here's the height of whatever it's looking at. You can do some trigonometry. It was about 1 meter across, the wingspan of a goose, and it was traveling 40 miles an hour, about the speed that a goose flies. And there was just nothing to it. The Tic Tac one is harder to explain, but basically that pilot's a fraud. It is the whole story. Like, I hate to say it, but I don't know why he's saying what he's saying, but yeah, because the story that he tells is really compelling, but the evidence that they show is not very compelling. And so anyway, but we love UFO stories, so bring them forward and we'll usually debunk them, because what are the top 3? ISS, Venus, space junk, I guess. Me and Riyadh saw at Stargate a crazy piece of space junk. It was intermittently flashing, and because it was intermittent and you couldn't really tell which way it was going, it looked like it was moving around. But I'm sure if we had a camera that could take a long exposure, it was traveling in a straight line. But you know, your eye, like when you get your head turned all the way up to the sky and you have no reference, right? All of a sudden, things start to look like they're moving in weird ways.
Well, the moon gets real big at the horizon. Well, actually, no.
Take a picture of it.
What you do is take a thumb over it, and then take a thumb there, it's the same size. That. Well, because you got trees and houses and everything's got nothing around up there. You can't tell you anything. So it's not.
Yeah. Oh, the other one is Sirius. When Sirius is low on the horizon and it's scintillating and it's flashing different colors, there was a cop, I think he chased Sirius for 40 minutes or something crazy like that. I mean, if you've never, so it's one of my favorite things to tell people that are like new to astronomy. It's only a couple weeks out of the year when like Sirius is low on the horizon at the right time of night where it really twinkles. And it twinkles so much that it actually flashes different colors. And it is beautiful to see when it's really doing it good. It looks like a Christmas tree light. I mean, it goes red, green, orange, blue, and people see this, don't know what they're looking at. That's a UFO.
Yes, anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody. I'm saying, going about, don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Why does sky work? There's a water out there.
It's blue for the same reason. Yeah. All right, that's enough out of me.
That's good, I like it.
I don't know. Are there any? There's nothing in the chat that I'm missing, is there? Whoop. I can't scroll through the chat. No, I guess not.
Would anybody who's online like to comment on the latest in UFO stuff?
Good. That's what I like to see. No comments on UFOs. Maybe I'll have to put together another presentation on UFOs.
There was one time I didn't to do it.
I got enough presentations. Well, it's only a meeting full on YouTubers. Yes. Yeah. And that's where, you know,
And he walks in and says,
I'm all for,
you
you know, as our volume of knowledge expands, our circumference of knowledge is understanding also. You know, and so I don't think we're done with physics, but at the same time, I don't think we're gonna get this Star Trek subspace thing that makes all of these theoretical things. Just don't, there's no reason the universe should give us
Was that
an,
the newest thing on this particular object?
you know,
And I said, yeah, that's
like
what they-
if you didn't have a boat,
Whatever.
if you're early man,
Anyway.
there's nothing you're gonna come up with to traverse the ocean until you come up with a boat. So,
And not only that, that was a very successful insurance bank. And he had,
right,
he came down to see me,
so
and they had a very nice talk.
all of the,
And I walked in,
well,
because I was,
we're
what am I gonna do?
we're gonna get past this by
He says, I'm gonna give you
understanding, you know, having a grand unified, even if we have a grand unified theory, why do you think that that's gonna allow you to create artificial intelligence or, you know, eliminate mass out of the spaceship, isolate yourself in a work bubble or something, you know, it's like, none of that comes with the grand unified theory.
And
It could still be very much against the rules. So, yeah, I just feel like I'm all for aliens. I think they're definitely out there, but I feel like the distance is just insurmountable. The smart societies have figured it out, and they don't go anywhere.
I mean, problem is radio transmission. He said, I'm not thinking you astronomy because you're very. He said, but keep it as an application. They said, again, not only am I travel only $27,000, but I at least got the Kuiper belt. Even that was, he already named it. More advanced there. And I'm still traveling 27 times faster. He says, be smart. Still fire much. So I went over with him. Met him at his business school. We had a very nice talk. So he says, but he says to me is what he would.
Yeah.
He says, you will be at each of our start parties. The rest of the parties is here.
Yeah.
Very fortunate.
Very good.
But still,
That
it's
say,
the,
oh, I want him to.
I mean, I guess it's just that nihilistic point of view. It's like at that point, right? Well, why bother? What's the reason to go somewhere else if you're some gammon painting? There's what is the reason to expand indefinite? Like, you know, if you're some advanced AI silicon-based society, why would you feel the need to continue to expand? Would you just settle on a finite size? And, you know, I don't know. I guess at a certain point, if you're that long-lived, there's nothing much else to do. But, you know, I think they're also smart enough to know, well, over there is the same as over here. What's the point of being over there? You know, what's on the opposite side of the Milky Way that can be so interesting?
People would say, why?
Yeah. Yeah. A very humanistic. Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody got things going.
Okay, I'm gonna skedaddle. I'll send an email to Mike, but I have a conflict that would be in the big thing. But I'll be at Stargate on Saturday.
For the advanced program, and 2 days after I signed on the dotted line, Johnson could tell me the next 2 days after they signed on that. And they try to take your signature back. Now, the funny part about that goes in shot with it. But the funny thing that goes with that, things in the first.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Nice meeting you.
Take care. Thank you so much. You are a godsend. We'd be twiddling our thumbs in the dark, just like I don't know how to fix this. Thank you so much.
So there's my story.
Okay, let's get going here. It's time for our feature speaker, Ken Zoll. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Ken. Is a founder and the executive director emeritus of the Verde Valley Archaeology Center and Museum in Camp Verde, Arizona. He's also a board member of the Arizona Archaeological and Historical Society, a lecturer for the Northern Arizona University Rhodes Scholar Program, and an Arizona Humanities presenter. He isn't a slouch. Ken is a researcher of ancient astronomy and a certified instructor in archaeoastronomy fieldwork. Ken has authored several articles and books on this topic. Really lucky to have him. His latest book, released in March 2023, is H.H. Nininger, Master of Meteorites, the title. Ken's current research in coordination with Arizona State University's Buseck Center for Meteorite Studies is on the use of meteorites among ancient Southwest cultures. Ken retired to Arizona in 2004 after 35 years of federal service in Chicago and Washington, D.C. He has a Bachelor of Science and an MBA degree from Loyola University of Chicago. He and his wife reside near Sedona, Arizona. Ken's topic this evening is ancient astronomy of Central Arizona. Ken, let me ask, do you want to take questions during your presentation, or would you rather they wait till the end?
I don't mind. Either way is fine with me.
Okay.
You won't interrupt me, so either way.
Okay. So we need you to share your screen.
Okay.
Okay, I see it. You want to?
There you go.
Yeah. Take it away, Ken.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. I actually went to school for a while in Holland, Michigan. So that's not too far from you guys. So
Right.
a little bit of returning. So my topic is archaeoastronomy, basically. But we just installed a new exhibit in our museum called Indigenous Cosmology and Astronomy. And so that's basically what I'm giving you here is the presentation that we give for that particular gallery. It's also part of a 3-hour class that I give on it. So I've condensed it. Hopefully I'll get it down to 45 minutes. And anytime along the way you want to cut me off, just feel free to cut me off. So as I said, my topic or my current area of study is archaeoastronomy, sometimes called cultural astronomy. In fact, I'm a founding member of the Society for the Study of Cultural Astronomy of the American Southwest, and we kind of chose to go with cultural astronomy instead of archaeoastronomy because a lot of people have trouble pronouncing archaeoastronomy. And in England, they call it astroarchaeology. So it's basically the study of prehistoric civilizations' use of the sky, as it says here, for purposes of calendar, agriculture, ritual, ceremony, mythology, and celestial event predictions. And it basically draws from astronomy, archaeology, and ethnology. My hobby back in Chicago was astronomy. I was a member of the Adler Planetarium out there. And I thought I'd get a nice big telescope when I come out to Arizona with the dark skies and get into that. And within 6 months of retiring out here, I volunteered at an archaeological site, which is only 15 minutes away from my house. That's the largest petroglyph or rock art site in the entire area. And within 5 months, I had discovered a solar calendar there that you'll see in just a little bit. And that kind of like started it off, and I've been doing that ever since. And so basically the Southwest sky watching techniques, there are basically, there are a few, the ancient cultures such as the Sinagua culture that lives here in the Verde Valley, Sedona area. They use two different naked eye observation methods. First was sighting, where they would use the horizon. And as you see in this picture here, it's rising at a certain peak or a certain valley, and it's predictable from winter solstice, summer solstice. You watch the horizon, either a sunrise or sunset, and you can be able to predict time over that year. And also they use imaging, and I'll show you examples of that. And imaging, basically, they would find a site that had something either natural, or they would manufacture a way to create a shadow. And then as the sun would pass over the sky over the course of the year, it would move these shadow lines across a panel of rock art images, and they would use that to tell their time. I'm going to start at the basic horizon watching. Every pueblo and culture in the Southwest had sun priests or sun watchers. Hopi and Zuni, their sacred time and space were marked by positions on the horizon where the sun would rise and set, as I'll show you in a couple of minutes, such as the solstices. And the sun chief or sun priest was responsible for sun watching. So that picture you see there is Masaka. That's the sun shrine at Zuni. And as the quote there shows from a 1901 expedition, each morning, just at dawn, the sun priest slowly approaches the square open tower and seats himself just inside that rude ancient stone chair and before a pillar sculpted with the face of the sun. And so actually on this pillar that you see here, the little slab, there's actually etched in a circle with rays coming out of it to show the sun marking. And so that's a very typical as to how the sun watchers would mark their spot, because I'm sure you realize if you change your position from your where you're sitting every day, you're going to change the angle of the sunrise, and it's going to throw off the whole thing. So they often would create these little seats, and they would watch, and I'll show you a couple in a minute. And again, this is nothing new to you guys. You know, you watch the azimuth bearings across the horizon, and winter solstice is generally 120 degrees, equinox is generally 90, and summer is roughly 60 or so. And it really depends on where you're at on the, like in our case, because we have mountains out here. I'm at 5,000 foot elevation. My site is, I'm looking at the horizon. It might be 65 degrees, 68 degrees. It might be 125 degrees, 118 degrees. It really depends on how close you are to the mountain range. And so it makes a difference. So when I'm finding a spot, I go out and I will bracket it. Obviously, I'll bracket my times, and I'll get out there quite early and before the sun rises, record it, and then stay a little while after that. And then I'll come back several days in a row just to be sure I've got the right day. So that's pretty much how they did it. And this is a drawing from 1891. Alexander Stephan was an ethnologist, and he actually lived with the Hopi for about 4 years. And he was adopted by many of the clans. And this is a drawing of that he made from watching the sun priest, who was sitting at the top of the highest pueblo. And this is the San Francisco Peaks, an ancient volcano to the west of Hopi. So they're actually watching sunsets to record their time, because when you go east, it's just the big open plains. And so they would use these ranges. And you can see where he put these little lines where the sun is rising. It's different times of the year. And then several years later, 1897, Jesse Walter Fuchs of the Smithsonian came out, and he noticed also that among the Hopi Indians, there are priests skilled in the lore of the sun who determine by observations on the points of the horizon where the sun rises or sets the time of the year proper for religious ceremonials. And so Alexander Stephan's actually passed away while at Hopi, at the Hopi reservation, and he's the only white person buried up at the Hopi. Several people came by after this and also verified that that's how the Hopi at least were watching the horizon. So I'm going to show you a couple of the sun watcher seats that I've discovered. And this, frankly, is the most exciting part of what I do, try to find a spot where somebody sat 2,000, 3,000 years ago and watched the horizon until time. So as you see in the background here, there's a large cliff face back here. That's actually facing east. And Honanki is actually a ancient ruin. It's the second largest ruin in the area. Montezuma Castle is the largest. This is the second largest. And however, the dwelling faces southwest, and so you don't get sunrise at all. And I couldn't find any drawings on the walls there that indicated the calendar, but the place is surrounded by agriculture. And therefore, they had to have a sun watcher that would be telling them when was the. And so I'm walking around the butte here, and I come to this rock, this protrusion over here. And as you get, and this is a little closer view of it. And when I get to the top of it, here's this smoothed out area in the center. And you can just make out, and I'll show you in a second, there's a petroglyph actually carved here of a sun rising on the horizon. And that's similar to how that when I showed you earlier at Zuni, where he had carved the sun on this slab. So he basically sat on this spot. And there's a little drawing to highlight it again. And I found an autobiography of a sun watcher at Hopi. And he was talking actually about his father before him was a sun watcher. And he said he would observe the horizon from a natural bowl in the rock, a kind of smoothed out pothole, and he would record his readings inside that bowl. Well, this certainly looks like a bowl to me. And it's probably from his behind going back and forth on this rock for years. Just show you quickly. What's interesting here too, this is the seat way up on top by the little marker. And when you're sitting up there and you put your legs down here, right where your calves would be, there are two elliptical smoothed out areas, like from where his calves would be, so that he wouldn't either scratch it up or maybe over time he just wore it down. And so this was in fact a sun watcher seat. This image here at the bottom, this line actually goes through it. You can just barely make it out. It's actually just worn away, so I didn't put it in there. But when I showed this to one of my Hopi friends, he got all excited. He said, "Oh, that's my clan symbol. That's the sun forehead clan, and that's my clan. And we have no record of ever coming out in that area. Can I bring elders out?" And so, of course, I said, "Sure." And so I've been waiting, waiting patiently. In Hopi time, they say, "Can I come out?" That could be 3 years from now. So we just get to learn that and just be patient with their cultural ways. Here's another one. This is at Palatki. This is another heritage site. There's a very large dwelling here. These are pictographs. Pictographs are painted images, and I'll show you in a little while petroglyphs, which are pecked into the rock. And this particular one, I was a docent here and watching it and looking when there's no tourists around, you kind of like look around, study them a little closer at your leisure. And I was looking at this one way at the back of this grotto. And initially it didn't strike me as much. You see these wiggly lines at the bottom in white, and then all of a sudden there's one painted filled in white, a rectangular in white, then it's open again. And then obviously this really big white ball, and that was fine. But then I noticed at the bottom, you see there's two black triangles down here between the third and the fourth little bump. And right at the middle of the end one, there's a big black triangle there. Well, then as I'm looking and I turn around, this looked an awful lot like the opposite horizon. And so you have the 1 red, 2 red, 3 red, 4 red, and then here's your white rectangle up here. And then, a white point. And then your white rectangle is this big white butte over here. And then it goes on red again, like here. And so it dawned on me, I never go anywhere without my compass. So I'm looking, and as she was, where's the equinox? Where's the solstices at this location? And it looked like these were, in fact, a calendar marker. And so after watching it for a year, I recorded that sure enough, where the one black triangle is the winter solstice sunrise, where the double one is between the third and the fourth is the spring and fall equinox sunrise. And just to the left of the big white butte over here where the ball is, that's where the summer solstice sunrise is. So this basically was the sun watcher's little cheat sheet, or the way he would remember or pass it on to future generations as to where the sun's going to rise at those three major events. So he would basically have sat right in front of this with this to his back. And it's basically a mirror image of the opposite horizon. So this is, again, another sun watcher seat. This is last one I'm going to show you, but I found about 4 of them so far. So now we're going to go to imaging, where they use rock art. And this is at Palatka, farther down. This big mound here is an agave roasting pit. And so the Sinagua and the Yavapai that came after them, they would harvest the agave out in the fields, and you pick it up about May, you dig it up about May, and you bury it in a big cyst, and you cover it up, you start a fire, you basically steam it. And you steam it for 4 days. And at the end of the 4 days, you uncover it all, and out comes the roasted agave. And basically they eat it. It's kind of like an artichoke, where they would just put the leaf in their mouth and pull it out and get all the juices off of it. And so this is a huge roasting pit. And what's interesting, if you were there, this bench at the back is sandstone. It's sandstone, but it's really, really shiny. And it's basically from the people sitting on it for generations. Just their butt just kind of wore it down, and it's real, real shiny all along the back end here. Well, I was asked by the Forest Service archaeologists to study this image back in the back there, this little white image back there. And that's what this is. And one thing I've learned in studying this is you pay attention to everything that's on this drawing. Nothing is done accidentally. It's all done with a purpose. I've counted all the white marks around here, and you're probably going to ask me about that. I have no idea if that doesn't correspond to anything. There's 33, so it doesn't mean anything. And you might notice these little black lines that are in here every once in a while. There's some charcoal you can see in here. Basically what that is, that was done, basically the white image was done by the Sinagua culture. They carbon dated some of the white paint to 1100, but the black is charcoal. After the Sinagua left the area around 1450, about the same time the Yavapai culture people came into the area. And when they would find an image that they found to be powerful, or they wanted to take the power of it onto themselves, they would trace it. And the only paint they had was charcoal. And so they would trace these images in charcoal. So that's what the black is all about. So that's irrelevant to the calendar effect. But as you look at this, there's 4 quadrants. But then over here at the top left quadrant, you see a little line coming out, and it's not in the center. So it's not that he was sloppy. That's where he wanted it. And then you look at the next quadrant, here's another line coming in off to the side. And then the bottom quadrant, there's a third line coming in. But the 4th quadrant has nothing in it. Well, when I see something like that, that means there was intent there. Is it part of the calendar? Maybe yes, maybe no. And so I pay particular attention to this. So I watched this for a whole year, and at the end of a whole, and there was the 3 markers that I was just describing. At the end of the year, this is what you get. You get the image. It's a perfect alignment with those 2 little marks. We've come to call those register marks. When you get into a big circle, and you'll see another one in a little while where it's huge, how do you know exactly where the middle? What if you off by a day or 2? You know, the spirits may not look favorably upon you, and so you better make sure you got the right day. So what we're finding is they would add these little innocuous little marks to guarantee that they were doing the thing on the right day. So here's an example where the only thing this whole thing does for the whole year is on equinox. It cuts this right in half. And you might say, why did they do this on equinox? Well, equinox, right in front of the roasting pit, at equinox is when that's the time of the year that they are told it's now time to clean out last year's roasting pit, inspect it on the inside, or any of the interior rocks cracked, or they have to replace them. They have to start gathering hardwood for the fires. And so they start the process of building the roasting pit again at the equinox. Well, I'm watching this for a whole year, and this is all it does. So it's like, well, that's kind of boring. And then, gosh, this little line over here at the top had nothing to do with anything. And so then it dawned on me, like at Hopi, well, maybe they did sunsets as well. And some of the tribes, they would do sunrise from the winter solstice to the summer solstice, and then they would watch sunsets from the summer solstice to the winter solstice. Got to cut the year in half. And so I went back out here for a whole year and recorded what it did at the sunsets. And what I found was that, bingo, on February 21, and again repeated October 21, you get this triangle dagger, basically is what's called. It's called the dagger. Goes into the center 30 days before the equinox and 30 days after the fall equinox. So again, why would they have done that? Well, turns out that February 21, the 3rd week of April, is when at Hopi, it's too cold to plant yet, but they would plant beans in little containers within their kivas underground to get the growing season started. And so it's actually, there's a dance associated with that called the bean dance. And that's the beginning of their calendar for planting this February 21st. So here's another little image of it. Another one is this is Rarick Canyon, obviously way up in the up along the, it's called the Mogollon Rim. And this is about 7,000 feet up. And right where I'm standing, there was this picture is a little ridge. It's only about 4 feet wide, and then you drop down about 800-900 feet. So you got to be sure you're careful as to where you step. And in fact, the only way you get to this is you sit on the edge, and then you drop about 6 feet to hit that platform there. So it's why they did it there. I have, other than to scare later archaeologists, I don't know. But it's very difficult to get there. But when you get there and you walk along the path, this is what you see at the end of the trail. This humongous boulder with this large spiral there. And this was suggested to the forest that it was a calendar. And so anyhow, so this was the calendar. So the Forest Service archaeologist says, go out there and study it. So he sends me off on this cliff to study this. And I have what's referred to as an open permit with the Forest Service. I can go anywhere in the forest, Coconino National Forest, to study archaeoastronomy. I have a few restrictions, like number one, if I know where I'm going to go, I have to tell the archaeologists and the Forest Service in advance, just in case people start talking that, hey, there's some guy roaming around out there. I have to wear Forest Service volunteer vest and hat, so I look a little official. And I have to study the item for an entire year. I can't make quick judgments as to what's going on. And then at the end of the year, I can go in with the data to the archaeologist, and if he agrees with me, then I'm allowed to talk about it. And so those are fairly simple rules that I follow religiously. So when you get a little closer here, you can see the spiral up close. It's actually 3 feet wide, and you see other items here at the bottom. And you can see, well, hopefully you can see that there's a shadow line going through the middle. And you might say, well, it's pretty faint. How do we know exactly it's the middle? Well, there's a line. And what do you see down here? Here's a little register mark. So if you look there, the shadow line is coming through here. And so it's right through the middle. And then to make it even more accurate, you come along here, and here's another little circle down here, and it's in the line at the time of, the line of the equinox here as well. So you got these two little register marks to guarantee that you're going to do it on the right day of the equinox. So then summer solstice comes along, and here it is. It's not exactly a straight line, but it's certainly through the center. And again, how do we know it's the center? There's another register mark. Here's this little spiral over here, and you can see that the shadow line dips to the center of it and continues out. So it's through the center of this, and then it makes this dash down to the center in here. So there you have this summer solstice marker as well. Winter solstice is a little more obscure, but since I do this so often, when this showed up, I got all goosebumpy because there's no line across the center, but instead what you have is you have a dagger that starts in the center and works its way out. You see that? And so then at the bottom, there's that little circle again. You've got this line, shadow line here, and it jumps to the center of this guy again. See how that goes again? So here you have this guy come into play for the summer solstice as well as the winter solstice. So again, we're calling this a register mark that goes into the center of this, and the dagger coming out of the center. Daggers are used a lot in rock art images. You'll see another one coming up soon. It's a lot more distinctive, but there's about 20 terms that we use in archaeoastronomy, such as daggers and sun shafts and things like that. And so those in the field, we know exactly what those terms are referring to. So this one was pretty cool. Let's see. Okay, now there are basically 7 levels of astronomical knowledge that's recognized. The very number one is that the culture recognizes that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. And then it goes gradually at different levels of sophistication until you get to number 7. And at number 7, they actually create something like a sundial They create and manipulate the environment in order to create the shadow effect. And the Sinagua culture here in the Sedona Verde Valley area, we're at number 7. They were extraordinarily sophisticated and constructed things. So what you're looking at here, we call this Thompson Terrace basically because we make up the name because we don't want people going there because this is not only still a sacred site for the Yavapai, it's also a sacred site for the Hopi. And so the last thing you want to do is start having tourists and Jeep companies taking people over to these places. So when we publish, we make up names so that they don't really know exactly where it's at. So what you're looking at here is this big rock here. Clearly, it was off of this above it, and it broke off and it fell down. This big rock below was naturally there, but you can just barely make out, and I think you can make out in your picture, there's an image back here in the shadows. And when we look up a little closer, this is the image that's behind there. And a couple significant things. Number one, it's black in the background. That is not natural. They actually sooted that. They put some burning logs in there, sooted it, made it black. And then they painted this white image on it. And the image, the biggest problem was figuring out what is this image. So I went back to Alexander Stephan's Hopi Journal, and that's the picture that you see there. The drawing was made by Alexander Stephens in 1893 of the great water serpent. And you can see it has a horn. It has 2 round eyes. This one's pretty faded, 2 round eyes, a rectangular mouth. So the shape of the eyes, the shape of the mouth are all significant. They're not done just, hey, I feel like doing a rectangular mouth. It is all significant. That tells you what this is. And then there's these feathers around it, just like you see in this drawing here. So we finally figured out that this is the great water serpent. Well, what's so special about the great water serpent? Well, 2 things. Number one, they believe that the great water serpent brought water to this world, but he also brought light to this world. So that's why he's got a black background and he's painted on top of it white. So he's coming out of the darkness to bring light into this world. And so they would do a ceremony once a year to that, to the image. What was significant about this is there you can see the image way in the back. And now here's that angle. Here at this slab here, they've raised this slab with 2, and they shoved 2 rocks under here to hold this end up. Okay, not an easy effort to do that. But then when you look to the far back here, what you're going to see is here's another slab. So here's these guys. This guy back here, this is a slab that they made a niche in the edge of this. They lifted this up and jammed this in there because this is air up here. This wasn't here, it just didn't happen to fall. So they lifted this end up, they jammed this in here and made a little wedge here to hold it in place. So this end is held up, this end is held up. They're creating something to create what we thought was some sort of shadow or some effect. Well, let me take a little water here. I am in Arizona, it's very dry out here. So as I'm supposed to do, I go out there for a whole year, and I go out on the 21st of every month, because that's generally when the solstices and the equinoxes are. So I go out on the 21st for a whole year at sunrise, and yeah, there's an effect, but it really didn't do anything impressive with the image or whatever. And so I go back to Alexander Stephan's journal, and we're the chapter on the great water serpent, and he said he witnessed the great water serpent ceremonies for 2 years in a row while he was up there, and it was always on February 13th. So I go out there on February 13th, and sure enough, that slab up above produces this dagger that just touches the edge of it on February 13th. That's all it does for the whole year. So this one calendar was created to record one single day of the whole year for one very important ceremony to honor the great water serpent who brought water and light to this world. So it just shows you how, number one, how sophisticated they were to keep able to create this. So you're then going to ask, did they create the rock first or did they create the image first? We have no idea. But the fact is that this works. And so it's a pretty impressive site. So unfortunately, After studying this for a whole year, plus extra some months to get to the February 13th date, I finally go into the Forest Service archaeologist and I say, finally figured it out. It's the Great Water Serpent, and it's to mark the date of the Great Water Serpent ceremony. And he looks at me, looks at the image, he goes, yeah, good, we know. And I said, what do you mean you know? He goes, well, the Hopi have always recognized this as the Great Water Serpent. So I, after studying this for a year plus, I said, well, I'm getting a little agitated. I said, why didn't you tell me this? He goes, well, you're the researcher. So he just made me work for the image, which is okay, but that's what you're supposed to do. So here's another one, interesting one. This is a work in progress. So this that earlier slide, the Honanki with the sun seat, that was on the far eastern side of Butte. On the western side of the Butte, there's this big long canyon called Lincoln Canyon. And there's a stream that runs through it, and there's agriculture on both sides. And we were out there surveying the site and recording the agricultural features. And we were going up the side, and we noticed this rock at the edge over here, which was kind of unusual. And when we got closer, you could see where the stream bed was over here. We're up about maybe 300 feet from the floor. And this rock, it's hard to tell from this picture, but clearly it's shaped. They worked the edges to make it rectangular. And when you're up close, you can see the edges, how it was worked and manipulated. And then the weird thing was, it's a different color. It's red sandstone, but it's a slightly different color than the rock around it. So this was brought here and placed there. And it's right on the edge. So if you can't get around this outer edge, they had to have worked this edge first and then shimmied it up to the edge to be right up against, because if you get to the edge here, it's a straight drop off about 300 feet. And of course, when I see something like this with a crack through the center of it, I whip out my compass to see if there's anything significant here. And it looked like the diagonal here was in line with the equinox. And so we started out here to get here at sunrise. We had to start hiking in the dark to get to this spot, because we barely got to civilian twilight at the base, so we could see as we're coming up top. We weren't walking in the dark and weren't walking on any snakes or anything. So we were able to get up to the top, and sure enough, we got there just in time to see the sunrise at equinox. And sure enough, the sun is rising right diagonally with the corners of this rock here. And so we said, woohoo, we have an equinox marker, which is fine, but what else could be going on? Well, when you turn around and look up another 300 feet, there's at the top of the bluff, there's this brick wall there. And so we went up to the top, went around to the back. The wall is 35 feet long. You can see the straight line here, it ends right here. And unfortunately, you can see some rock here. There was a lower wall here, and it collapsed farther down. And so there's one wall there. There's nothing on the other side. It's totally open back here. And so the big question is, why would they create one single wall with an apparent doorway? To what purpose? And again, this is straight down. So it's not defensive, because number one, there's no way you can get up there from the front, and the back is totally open. So it's not defensive. It could have come in at any time. So again, I get up there, I'm looking at this, I put my compass up against this wall, and I'm thinking, holy crap, this is kind of pointing to the summer solstice angles. So we go up there and hike up there for summer solstice. And sure enough, here's the summer solstice. You can see, here's the wall edge. You can see the sun is lighting up this cactus right through here. And this is where the other door rock, where the other was. So there was a wall here at some point. And so they created this wall to record, to have the sun come in here at the time of the summer solstice. Well, as you know, the sun appears to stand still at the time of the summer solstice and the winter solstice. It's pretty much, to the naked eye, it kind of looks like it's sitting in the same spot for 3 days, roughly. And we know it's not, but it's at that point of the elliptical where it actually appears to be sitting there for 3 days. So according to Hopi and many other of the Pueblo cultures, they see that as the sun is resting. So it's resting in its summer home for 3 days, and then it makes its journey back to winter. And then there's another house at the other end, and it's their winter home, resting space before they begin the journey back to summer. And so we believe that this was built here to represent symbolically the sun's summer home that was resting here until it makes its return. So I said, well, this is a work in progress because you've got an equinox marker with the rock. Up the cliff, you've got a summer solstice sun seat, sun house. There must be a winter one somewhere. Well, sure enough, across on the other side of this Lincoln Canyon's down here, at the other side, halfway up this bluff is another wall. It's 100 feet long, and there's a doorway right there. And so it's my suspicion that this is a winter solstice sun house, that if I were up back here at winter sunset, the sun would set right through that doorway. And looking at it geometrically with Google Earth and everything, I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. The only way to prove it is to be up there and record that. Well, number one, you can see this is less of a friendly hike to get up there. And again, this is about 800 feet up. And if you've ever been out in the Southwest, you know, when you hit sunset, you've got barely any time at all before it gets to be pitch black. And so to record this, we're going to have to camp up there. And there are bears up there, and there's other things up there. And I'm of an age now where I don't camp anymore. And so I'm trying to find some NAU kid who wants to go up there and record this for me. So that's why I say it's a work in progress. So I'm pretty sure what it is. I can take them up there during the day and actually get them set up for winter solstice. I'll go down before the sun sets, let him record it, and I'll come back the next day and pick them up. So so this is a work in progress of a winter sunset summer home or resting place. Okay, so this is the one that started it all. This is called the Crane Petrichor site. This was a historic cattle ranch from 1901 called the V-Bar-V. That was the cattle brand you see there, purchased by the Forest Service in '94, actually purchased by the University of Arizona. They wanted to create an animal husbandry study there. They bought it, and then they traded the property to the Forest Service for some area that was more suited to cattle grazing. And so this is, again, another one they manipulated. You see these boulders coming out of the edge here, and this whole face is covered with rock art. And when the sun crests the bluff, this wall is only 2 degrees off of true north, and it's perfect transit of the sun east to west. And when the sun crests the bluff, it'll hit these boulders that I call a solar panel, and it will throw down images down below. So the shadow lines. So what we use here is these concentric circles here. As part of it, there's 7 of them. There are these 2 snake-like images here. This is a very involved, we call it falling spiral. And then this very unique image here, all of which are part of the calendar. And again, I don't have this. I wrote a whole book just on this site. It was basically a 3-year study to document the whole thing. So I'm just going to go through this really quick. And so equinox, the sun will hit those 2 boulders. It will throw shadows down here. And these 3 concentric circles are in perfect alignment. The only time all 3 of them are touched in tangent like this is only on the vernal equinox and all the autumnal equinox. So very involved. They got 3 images to be sure that it's accurate here. Then there's actually on May 21st, there's an effect as well to tell them it's time for an early planting. May 21st is the full planting, usually the 3rd week of April. May is the full planting of corn here. And you've got a couple things going on here. The shadow line here is the width of a snake. And the snake is often prayed to bring rain. They do not worship the snakes, but they've noticed that snakes do not like to be in the rain. And so when the rain comes, snakes go underground. So they often would pray to the snakes, please go underground, and maybe that would bring the rain. And again, you see this one's also tangent to 2 concentric circles here. This is another image that we're still studying. It's not a snake because there's a dot here, there's a dot there, there's a dot there. So something else is going on. We're still studying it. And then this guy comes into play. I'll show you that in a second. But this is the main corn planting, because when you got up close, there's the corn plant dead center in the sun. That tells them it's time to do the full planting sun. There's another corn plant off to the left that just touches its root for early, and there's another corn plant right here, just barely make it out. It gets touched at its root later for a late corn planting time. So here we are, summer solstice. You can see the full effect of these two shadows are thrown all the way to the ground. And it's basically like a pendulum. So here we're summer solstice, and now it's going to start going back up. These two are going to go following up the rock until it gets to the winter solstice, which will be a straight line between these two rocks. So it's basically 6 months down and then 6 months back up again. And they would mark along here all these images, tell them the time of the year. So at summer solstice, you've got a couple of things. This is, again, I'll point this out in a second. But this is the character right here. These two images in the initial rock art recording, they were referred to as two sickle-like images with an asterisk, but actually they are two dancing figures. So when you get up close, they each have two little feet. They're bent over dancing to the sun, which is the asterisk, at the time of the summer solstice. And so that was one of our biggest clues. This falling spiral is significant for planting purposes. So on the third week of April, I said it's the early planting time. So third week of April, when it comes, it's actually the width exactly of 3 segments. And then you come by 30 days later, and it's the width of the next 2 segments. And then you come down 30 days later, and it's from the last 2 segments down to the last dot. And so what you have is early planting, full planting, late planting, but it's also tracking time. It takes 90 days for the sun to move from this top dot to this bottom dot. Gestation period in the Verde Valley of corn is 88 days. So what you have here is first planting, second planting, third planting, but also the harvest, 90 days of the first planting. So as it's moving now back to August, or to the autumnal equinox, this is the planting of the late crop and harvesting of the first. This was planting of the full crop, but also harvesting the crop. And then this one is harvesting the early crop as well. So it's 90 days down, 90 days back up again. And what about this stuff after it? Well, after this, when it hits this dot on the summer solstice, you've got 4 short lines like lightning, a tight spiral like water going down a drain. Lightning and water after the summer solstice is when the summer monsoons arrive. And they arrive, generally speaking, around July 1st. And so this is basically predicting to them how much time they have before the monsoons arrive, and they better get everything rooted and planted because heavy rains are starting to come. So we're pretty sure that this was a planting calendar, harvest calendar, but also a monsoon predictor with this part down below. And winter solstice is entering a totally different thing. There's this, what I call the polar panel here, and this is where all the images are here. And way up here, it's hard, you can't see it here, but there's a little niche, little knot that's up here. So there's 2 little things that are going to be going on here at winter solstice. So as in this crack up here, you think, oh, that's just a bunch of rubble. But when we got up there, we were able to get scaffolding when we went up there, and we saw that they actually piled rocks up there on a stair-step kind of fashion to reach this particular point. And the point is when the sun is going to be at its lowest point, and it's going to actually show there as it's going from east to west to hit the lowest point there for the summer solstice, or winter solstice rather. It's going this way. So I'm actually sitting in an excavation hole, taking this picture with a filter on my camera that's used for solar observations. And so when it hits this particular point here, where I'm sitting here, I was sitting in this hole right here, this excavation here. It produces this dagger. That's exactly the shape of that opening. And it's at the edge of this rock. You can just see a rock here, and it's going up this cliff face. Well, if you remember from the big panel, they use a lot of concentric circles. And what we found in the excavations that we did over here at the base, you can just basically make one of these lines where our excavation line was. The earth level when this now over here was about 36 inches lower than it is today. And so this dagger is laying on the ground about 2 feet out. If this dirt wasn't here, it would be going straight down these rocks. So the theory is that there's a concentric circle down here where this tip would hit on the winter solstice. So we have a pending permit request to excavate a big square here to find out, is there a concentric circle down below, and why is this slab here? It's not obvious there, but this is a piece of basalt, volcanic rock. It's a slab, and it's upright. That is not a natural position, so it was placed there. So the big open question here is there a concentric circle on this rock down below where this tip would hit? And also, why is this here? Is this a monolith or what? So hopefully by winter, we'll be able to excavate and answer this. So the other interesting feature that, as I said, there's a little notch at the top. When the notch is hit, it throws a dagger back on the wall and goes right to the center of this last concentric circle. So there are actually two events here to mark the winter solstice. There's the dagger on the ground, and an hour later, as the sun passes and hits the notch, it throws the dagger back on the wall. And so you might say, why did they need two different markers for the winter solstice? Well, in Puebloan culture, the winter solstice is the most important because the summer solstice is basically a time of Thanksgiving. They're thanking the sun, the spirits that have brought the water, the sun, everything is growing. It's great. It's harvest time. It's kind of like Thanksgiving. Winter solstice, what's happening? It's the darkest day of the year. It's the shortest day of the year. It's the coldest day of the year. And so you have to be sure that the sun will return. And so the winter solstice ceremonies and dances are very serious, and they are to encourage the sun to return to warm up the earth and bring back life to the earth. And so unfortunately, in October of 2018, we had a tropical depression that came through here, and it weakened this top boulder, and it came tumbling down. And so you can't see all the effects. Some of the effects you can still see, but you can't see them all. It's a good news, bad news kind of thing. The bad news is obviously it's fallen. But the good news, if you could call it that, is we were convinced that this particular rock had been manipulated. We brought geologists out there. We were up on scaffolding, and the geologists would all say that, well, these are all naturally occurring rocks, but they came out from the surface through frost heaving or whatever over the eons. But the top rock that fell was manipulated. It was moved, and it was held in place by various little wedges of basalt stone, because as soon as you move it, you weakened it, it gets really precarious. And so they jammed wedges in on both sides to hold it in place for the purpose of the calendar. And the geologists who were there, they kept saying, oh, this is precarious. It's going to come down any day. And we'd say, well, it's been up here, we know, at least 800 years. And so sure enough, 2018 came along, and not just enough wind and rain got in there and caused this rock to fall. So of course, the first question that everybody asks is, are you going to put it back up? Well, number one, it's probably about a ton, so it'd be difficult to get it up there. It did partially break, it came down, but before you do anything at an archaeological site that is claimed by any of the Native American tribes, you have to get their consent. And they immediately said no. Even if we brought we actually had somebody who said, well, I have a 3D printer and I can replicate that, and it'll be nice and light. You can get it up there and we can put it back up together again. And the Hopi said no. They said the creator, the Hopi referred to God as the creator. The creator said it was time for it to come down. It was meant to come down. The creator would not want it put back up again. And so the Forest Service is just leaving it there, and we're just telling the story about how it is. So last but not least, my current area of study, I'll go through this quickly, is the study of meteorites. And this map shows you where meteorites have been found around the continent at various archaeological sites. The ones in red are ones, when I give my a long extended talk on meteorites, those are ones I highlight significantly. And so I'm going to show you just a few that are from within this area, and one in your area. And so one of the big ones here is the Navajo meteorite, found, quote unquote, found in 1921. It has two large masses, 3,300 pounds and 1,500 pounds. And this is how it was displayed in the Smithsonian for a number of years. It was regarded as a sacred object by the Navajo that were there. They actually partially covered up with rocks because they didn't want people to find it or move it around, leave it alone. And actually, if you look really closely, and it's really hard from that picture, but there are scratches, images on here, different places. So there are actually images carved in there, and the Navajo referred to them as being made by the prehistoric pottery makers, who were the Hopi ancestors. And so this was obviously another rock that they also considered to be sacred, but now resides at the Smithsonian. Another meteorite was the Mesa Verde meteorite up at the Mesa Verde ruins up there. This was found in 1922 by Jesse Walter Fuchs again at the Smithsonian at the Sunshine House. It's relatively small, 3 inches, 4 inches, 3, weighs but almost 8 pounds. But Jesse Fuchs said that the position in which he found it in the sun shrine here was like on an altar, and indicated to him that it was placed there during its construction in 1275. So again, it was a sacred object, and it's not uncommon to find meteorites on altars. And so this was just up there in Colorado at Mesa Verde. This one coming closer to you guys, the Brenham meteorite. And as many of you probably know, meteorites are generally named after the closest geological feature when they're found. And the Brenham Post Office was the closest when the first fragments were found here. And this fell 20,000 years ago, and it left a big stream. This was a swarm meteorite, not one single rock. And as it entered the atmosphere, it was dropping off pieces. So the red dots here are showing some of the larger pieces. Starting in 1882, there were 3 tons of fragments have been found to date. The largest was 990 pounds, and the next biggest was 1430. And what was interesting to me, and why I got involved in it, is the Hopewell culture, which is over by you guys in Ohio, Illinois, and Indiana. In the Ohio mounds, in 2 different mounds, they found nuggets from the Brenham meteorite. So fragments of meteorites from Kansas were found in Ohio, placed in on altars as offerings on an altar. In the Illinois Hopewell, at the particular Mound City group, Hopewell culture site, they found 22 iron foil overlaid beads in a burial. And that's one of the beads that you see right here. They basically pounded the iron flat and then folded it around a piece of wood. And the wood was what was able to be carbon dated. And they carbon dated it to between 386 BC to 250 BC. And so they also found here artisans had used the iron and created them in adzes, adze, awls, celts, chisels, drills. But they said it looked like none of them have actually been used. It almost like they took meteorite fragments, created tools from their profession as though they were some sort of symbol of social status or probably religious icons for their particular craft. So here they are, meteorites from Kansas over in Ohio and Illinois. So getting back to my area, Winona meteorite, this was found in 1928 right next to a ruin. That was the Winona ruin. And as you can see here, they buried it. They created a cyst in the ground, lined it with flagstones, put the meteorite fragments inside, covered it with a large slab, and then buried it all up. And they said when they first saw it and dug it up, it was one large egg-shaped mass weighing about 53 pounds. But because it was water was seeping in there from snows and rains, it started to break up the iron. And when they touched it, it broke up into multiple pieces. But when they analyzed it, thinking, well, it's pretty close to Meteor Crater, maybe it came on piece from Meteor Crater. What they found was when they did the mineralogical studies, it was wholly unique. By 1928, they had never, ever found a meteorite of this particular metallurgical combinations. And so they named it a Winonite. And so it's a wholly new class of meteorite called Winonites. And to date, they've only found about 50 Winonites in the world. And most of them have been found in Antarctica. So they're still floating around in space. They do these twice a year expeditions in Antarctica, because all these black meteorites are falling on the white snow. They're fairly easy to see. And so most of the meteorites that are Winonite, one was found in Texas, but most of them are down in Antarctica. But it's the cyst, that's why I'm bringing it to your attention, because we're now going to Meteor Candy Diablo, a meteor crater there. You can see San Francisco peaks way in the background here. That's the same thing. Hopi is up way over here. So they were looking at the peaks for their calendar making. And then Meteor Crater is down here. And I could talk for 3 hours on how it was created, etc. But just to show you, there's a camp. What brought my attention to this was this meteorite called the Camp Verde meteorite. It was likewise found in a cyst, flagstone-lined cyst. As the founder said, it was a little pocket in the earth, walled and covered over with flat rocks, very similar to the Winonite meteorite. But this was a very large meteorite, and it was wrapped in a turkey feather blanket, which is a religious object. Turkey feather blankets take like a year to make out of turkey feathers, and they're only used in religious ceremonies. And so this was wrapped up in this turkey feather blanket. And this is the ruin it was found in. It was found just opposite this plaza, the only plaza facing sunrise, which is significant. And it was found in room 32 right there. And so this looks a little like Boot or Italy, if you will, too. But they found it there, and it's basically, this is it, 135 pounds. It's basically 2 feet wide, about a foot tall, 5 inches at the base, tapers to a point at the top. And studies confirmed that this is from the meteor crater, is part of the Canyon Diablo meteorite that created Meteor Crater, which is 53 air miles away. And so the big question we started to study is, how did 135 pound meteorite get carried, its dead weight iron, get carried all the way over to Camp Verde, which started the study. So then the next thing, over at Arizona State, they have a meteorite called Bloody Basin meteorite. This was found in 1958 by an 8-year-old from Prescott who was on a hunting trip with his brothers and his father in the Bloody Basin area of the Tonto National Forest. And they were camping near the Red Creek dwelling. And this, the son picked it up and brought it back. And it's pretty small. It's like a big potato, about 6 inches by 3 by 3, weighs about 11 pounds. And studies also confirmed that it is from Meteor Crater. Now, this is 78 miles away. And so the big question is, how did this get out this far away? One thing I didn't put in here, but really fast, you can see this little rectangular area here. That's actually carbon, that's wood. There's another one over here, there's another one over here, there's another one back here. And so in order to prove that it was in the ruin, ASU allowed me to take samples of this carbon material, the burnt material, and I got carbon dated, and it came back at roughly 1385. And the ruin was thought to have burnt down around the year 1400. So the burnt material in here archaeologically proved the date of the burn down of the ruin. It also proved that it was in fact in the ruin at the time. So we're doing a whole separate paper just on the carbon dating of material attached to the meteorite. And so then we had a third meteorite at ASU called the Fossil Springs meteorite. And this is it here. And this little map here is showing you the little X right where it's found along Fossil Springs. Well, this up above Fossil Spring, there are hundreds of ruins along the top here. This was a perennially running creek, a lot of water. And so this was found near a ruin. We can't say that it was in the ruin, but it was near a ruin. But again, it's from Canyon Diablo created Meteor Crater. Here we are 59 miles away. So how did this get here? And then last but not least, this meteorite was found only in 2017 on Deadman Mesa in the Tonto. Again, near the town of Strawberry, so they named it the Strawberry meteorite, right by Fossil Creek. And actually, it was found above, on top, only 100 yards away from a ruin. And so we don't know for a fact if they knew it was a meteorite or whatever, but it was found right by the ruin. And it was, in fact, again, verified to come from Meteor Crater. So ASU and I are writing a paper. How did these meteorites get this far away from Meteor Crater? There's been 2 studies done. One was that they finally confirmed that the Canyon Diablo meteorite was what's referred to as a swarm meteorite, similar to Brenham, that rather than one large mass, it was thousands of pieces that were traveling through the universe. When those hit an atmosphere, the aerodynamic pressure kind of pulls on the pieces and they start to fall away before they get to the point of impact. And so they leave a trail like they did at Brenham. And they also were able to establish with various computer modeling that the meteorite approached the area, the crater, from the southwest. And so when you look at these 4 meteorites, they're all from Meteor Crater, they're all pretty much in this pattern. And while studying the International Catalog of Meteoritics, they have identified 6 additional meteorites found in this area that were also located, but not near Native American ruins. However, the catalog says, well, we don't know how they got there. So they must have been manually transported by Native Americans. We don't think so. And so when you look at Meteor Crater, you look at all these other meteorites that are there, and then you look at the southwest direction. We think this is pure southwest. It could have been off a couple of degrees, but basically it's following a southwest path. So as it was entering the atmosphere, ready to hit Meteor Crater, it was dropping off pieces as it came. And a swarm meteor often, when it hits impact, will also throw pieces along this equatorial plane farther north. And so that's how these two have got up here. So the actual line might be a little closer to this, but we don't want to, surmise, but just looking pure southwest along here. So we're basically coming up with the conclusion that they were not manually transported by Native Americans. They actually were part of random collecting by the Native Americans as it fell, or many, many thousands of years after it fell, but they recognized it as meteorites and took them upon themselves. So what we said in the study, the 10 fragments detached from the main mass during atmospheric passage. Their aerodynamic deflection allowed the fragments to enter into new trajectories, allowing them to slow to a terminal velocity and impact the region outside the crater. The material removed from the main mass would be expected to have originated along the equatorial band of the meteoroid along its axis, parallel to its motion through the atmosphere, and that the 4 meteorites found in the Sinagua ruins were likely collected by them randomly rather than being manually transported. So we're putting a paper together to basically say the international catalog is wrong, and that will raise a few eyebrows here and there. But that's what we're putting together now. So that'll probably come out next year. So that's my talk. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions? Bob?
I have one you can repeat it. So the new book is called Indigenous Cosmology and Astronomy. That's the official name of the book.
Okay, a question is, the title Indigenous Cosmology and Astronomy, is that the title of a book?
No, that's the title of our exhibit. The book that covers all of this, it's my book. The title is Heart of the Sky. And it's on Amazon, but it's Heart of the Sky. Heart of the Sky, and all of this, including the meteorites, are included in that one book. It's basically my 8 years of work on this area. There's still a few that I'm still working on, so there may be a part 2 coming out later on. But the one is only on the VBARV calendar site that's studied for 3 years. It's called Sinagua Sunwatchers. But the broader one that covers all of the things I just talked about is called Heart of the Sky. There's a lot of books out there called Heart of the Sky, so you got to put my name in. You got to put my name plus Heart of the Sky, and then it'll pop up. And by the way, all my books that are out there, all the proceeds from the books go to the Archaeological Center. I've never made a nickel off the sale of any of the books. I'm retired. I'm using the culture of the forest. I'm using the culture of the tribes. I don't feel that I should be making anything off of it. And so the money just goes right to the Archaeology Center. They print it, they advertise it, and they sell it. And so you'll be making a contribution basically to the Archaeology Center when you buy a book.
Okay, any other questions? I have a question, and this is a general question. There are many places in the world where you find these kind of things that ancient people created that line up with equinoxes and solstices and so forth, like Stonehenge, for example. My question is, the Earth's axis shifts in the sky over thousands of years. It's not always pointing in the same direction, and it shifts quite a bit over 1,000 years. So wouldn't that change the alignments that you see today?
Well, we know the axis, it takes 26,000 years for it to make its complete circle, and come back again. And so I also work with Lowell Observatory. And so when I have a question like that, I run over to the solar astronomer and we brainstorm it. And for example, people would ask that question at the VBARV calendar. So this calendar was created, we think, around the year 1000 or 1200. And so should it be different? So he right away turned around and got on his computer and started throwing in a bunch of numbers. And he turned around and he said, where you're at from the year 1200 to the year 2000, the axis has changed 0.7 of 1 degree. which is not something that you could visually determine. And so the effect today, as opposed to 800, 900 years ago, visually is not the same. It's true, for example, when they talk about the pyramids and some of the windows in the pyramids used to align with Sirius. Well, that was 5,000 years ago it aligned with Sirius. It doesn't align with Sirius anymore. And so you do have to consider precession when you're looking at these things and try to reverse a little bit. I was asked to go out to Springerville, Arizona several years ago. They have what they thought was a solar astronomical observatory, a very large, unique circular structure. And it had 5 doorways in this circular structure, and they thought they were very aligned with certain things. So I spent 3 years going back and forth there, studying it, and was able to establish that yes, there's a number of astronomical things being recorded there, not what they thought, but it turns out it was something, but not exactly what they were thinking. But while they were there, they said, "Oh, sit on this rock in the center of this circle." And tonight, when we come back here, you'll see that the North Star rises right through the middle of this one doorway, and that's probably why they have this rock here. You could observe the North Star rising it. And so I'm kind of snickered to myself. And when I went out there that evening, I brought my laptop, I brought up my software, and I said, well, yeah, okay. Yes, the North Star opens right through this doorway. It's beautiful. It's perfect. It's perfectly framed. Then I brought up the computer and I showed, well, look at precession 600 years ago, well, not 600, but 1,000 years ago or so, it was 2 degrees farther off to the left. So it wasn't even a doorway at the time that they created this circle. And so they kind of deflated by, so that's precession for you. It's you got to consider that when you're looking at these things.
Interesting. Any other questions?
Great question.
Ken, it's been fascinating. Thank
Well,
you
I
so
talked pretty
much.
fast. I hope it made sense.
It sounds like you've got a great retirement thing going on there.
My wife said it keeps me out of the bars.
What's your next, ask him what his next adventure is.
Question here is, what's your next adventure?
I still have, probably another year of work to finish the papers. Got 2 papers coming out on the meteorites, and that's about it. And okay, you'll totally changing direction. When I was in college at Loyola, I played the trumpet in a wedding band, and I sold my trumpet to buy my wife's engagement ring, and haven't played it since. But I have some friends here that they have a little group, and they conned me into, long story short, another friend had a trumpet he wasn't using. He said, if you want to use the trumpet, you can have the trumpet. These friends heard about it. They said, we want you to join the band. So I've taken up my trumpet again after 55 years of not playing trumpet.
Wow.
And so I'm probably going to start in the fall in a small little jazz group. So that's my endeavor. Totally different.
Sound like fun.
Well, you got to keep your mind active as you get older. And I'm at the stage now where I'm not climbing 800, 900 feet bluffs anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you again. And as we end this meeting, I will remind the people in this room that some of us go to the Coney Island restaurant, just a little ways north on Van Dyke, to continue discussions. So thank you, everyone, and good night.